Hello, please do subscribe if you aren't already. So it's been a couple of weeks since I've been on here, so a little bit of explanation. My elderly parents live quite a long way from where I live, and so I've been spending some time with them recently and organising some things because they're not so well. In addition, when I came back, I managed to catch a rather nasty respiratory infection, which was probably COVID. So anyway, now I'm back in the studio and pleased to be here. And so what I actually want to do today is to talk about the studio, my home studio, and about some adjustments I've recently made and a little bit of context to that really. I think all of our workspaces are kind of constantly evolving beasts really, and I think we need to kind of be mindful of the importance of being aware of what's happening in our workspaces so that we can make sure that they're as usable and as good a place and environment for work as possible. And so I'm going to share my specific changes, but also in the context of some wider sort of tips really. And the other thing I wanted to just mention is that I'm so excited that this weekend, the 18th, Sunday the 18th of July 2023, I'm going to be releasing my wild flora collection, and I'm releasing it to newsletter subscribers first. And so if you're not subscribed, I'll put a link to that in the notes so that you can then receive the link so that you can see the collection first. And I will also be including a video, so I'm sharing a walkthrough of all of the paintings and sharing in detail on the video the actual paintings themselves. So as I say, if you're not subscribed and you want to see it first, then please do click the link. And of course all of the work is for sale. So back to the studio, and would you believe, if you've been following me for a while, it's a year ago since I moved to a home studio. I did originally have a studio or several studios in an old mill, and a year ago I moved to my home studio. And so having worked with the space for that long, it's given me then the realisation of what things aren't working and what I could do to change. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the camera around and focus on two areas, and as I say, explain what I've done, but in the context of, you know, what we all probably should be thinking about, and maybe approach our studio spaces in this way. So without further ado, I'm going to start by sharing what a couple of these areas were like a year ago, and then share with you what I've done to them. Okay, here we go. So this is my studio from a year ago, and as you can see in front, the right hand part of the picture, there's this pile of plastic boxes and all sorts of storage things. I've got canvases in that cardboard box, I've got black frames, all sorts of things piled up, which essentially is kind of a stack which is inevitably, and has done over the last few months, going to just get bigger and bigger, to the extent that it will just form this mass of rubbish in the middle of the room, which isn't ideal and it's not really workable. And I guess I always knew that. I just at the time I think I'd kind of run out of energy and thought I would see how it would go. And then this side of the room, over the other side, I have a work table, but also these two tables on the left, which I've got underneath them. I have spare canvases and panels and so on, and on the top the idea was that I had paper that I could use as a cutting surface and so on. But you can see the way it is with those two tables, one at the back and one at the front. They became just a storage corner where things just got piled up. And so again, similar to the other side of the room, this area really needed to be sorted out to make it much more usable. So here I am moving everything out from the corner and taking those tables out so that I can reorganise this rather muddled space and combine it with the things from the other side that were in the middle of the room that were part of this sort of need to store things like packing materials, as you can see in the middle there. And obviously I don't work this fast, especially not when it's hot. So this is the area now, and although it might look a little bit messy, it's a lot more workable. And so I've got the desks now, one on the left and one on the right, sort of side by side, so there isn't a desk at the back. and that makes much more sense because it means that everything is accessible, and it means that on the left I've got my sort of big A1 paper, and that desk could be used for cutting, and it's easily accessible from the front. And then the one on the right will be great for things like packing and organising and doing things sort of in an extended way from the other work surface on the other side of the room. But what it does mean is that I've kind of, in a way, increased my usable working space by doing it in this way. And so what I have now is at the back against the wall underneath the desk and to the back are the things that I don't need to access very often. They're old pieces of work that I want to keep, but I'm not working on them. And then at the front I've got all of my materials for new paintings. So I've got, if I walk over, I've got panels on this side, and then I've got some MDF panels, and then in this box I've got bigger canvases. And then moving along, I've got my boards and my cutting mats and things all accessible so that I can easily get to those. Some of them I need for going out, some of them are boards that I use in the studio. So they're all accessible, which makes much more sense. And then I've got my packing materials in the middle here. And so again, they're easily accessible. So if I'm packing a painting, then this table is a great surface to be doing that. And then at the back there, I've got my rolls of paper and other things. And to be honest, when they were at the side of the desk, they kept falling over anyway. So having them wedged in the back is good. And I've got my browser at the back there and some spare boxes. So hopefully this is going to be a lot more usable in its current format. So this is the other side of the room. And you've got a sneaky peek at some of the work from my wild flora collection there. But the main thing to pay attention with really is this layout now. So I have moved this desk over from the other side of the room to this side, and this is going to be part of my working on paintings and art. And it's great because it's very much connected to the painting wall that you see there on the left. And also I've got my printer and other things underneath there. But it's very much now a usable space rather than junk piled up, which is what was essentially happening. And I also had trolleys of my paints and things, so those were kind of getting in the way there and making the actual painting wall feel quite claustrophobic, whereas now it feels much more open and spacious, which I think is the point. But the main thing as well is that this enables me as well to, when I'm working on a new group of works, I have all of that wall space that I will be able to put things on and around me. So I've got much more of a clean visual sort of line of work rather than it all dotted around the room, which I think is much more beneficial. So in a context of saying, well, you know, this is all very well, but it's very specific stuff and related to me. But I think the main thing that's come out of this for me is my top tip is that focus on one or two areas. There will be something, there might be more than one thing, but you'll have to sort of rate them. There will be one or two things that are really bugging you, that are really interfering with your work. And in my case, it was this pile of stuff that as soon as I walked in the studio, I felt confused and, you know, and everything was happening all at once and it was very muddled. So there will be something that is your bugbear. So focus on that. Focus on what can you do to change that and improve it. And I think for me, one of the key things to think about is, how do I make this more usable? Because the reality was that neither this side of the room nor the other side of the room were working for me for one reason or another. And so you really have to, when you're going to address your bugbear, you've really got to focus on how to make it a more usable space, a more useful way of working in your studio. And that, I think, is really my top tip, because if you try and to have a big studio tidy, that can be all well and good, but sometimes it is better to just focus on one or two areas. Just, you know, start with those, see how you go. Because with the best will in the world, as I think I alluded to at the beginning, when you're doing the whole thing, you kind of run out of energy. And I think it's good just to focus on one or two areas and getting to grips with those. And then when you see what a difference that improvement makes, that kind of spurs you on to do other things. And in case you were wondering what happened to all of my trolleys, I've now got them all together, grouped all together. So they've got my paints in and my mixed media and my tools. And then I've obviously got all my paintbrushes in the boxes that you can see on the top on the right hand side. So everything is now kind of organised together adjacent to my painting wall, which is over to the right hand side there. So I think that works a lot better as well. Okay, and to end with, I thought I would just share with you this snapshot view of walking through the door of the studio, and it is actually, does feel a lot more spacious and a lot better and a lot more usable. So I've obviously got my desk here now on this side with the printer underneath, and then on the other side, as you saw, I've got all of my sort of back workings, if you like, the storage and the support, the surfaces under the tables, desks so that I can have an area for cutting and so on. And so I think this actually, hopefully, will be a lot more usable. So thank you very much for watching. Please do like and subscribe if you aren't already. And good luck if you are doing works and improving your workspace. And hopefully what I've said in this video is helpful. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.